Have you ever wondered why life sometimes places someone on your path who feels so right, yet is ultimately unreachable? Why would the universe allow such an overwhelming connection only to make it impossible to hold on to? It's one of the most excruciating realizations. To meet a soul that feels so deeply intertwined with your own, only to sense, maybe immediately, maybe over time, that you cannot stay together. Not because the love isn't real, not because the bond isn't profound, but because life, circumstances, timing, or even the needs of your own evolution demand something else. And it's precisely in these moments of heartbreak that you start to glimpse a greater truth. The universe doesn't always send us people to keep. Sometimes it sends them to awaken something sleeping within us, a part we could never have touched alone. Carl Jung believed that true connections aren't orchestrated by our rational minds. They rise from the depths of the unconscious. They are moments where the self, the truest part of our being, calls us toward transformation, toward becoming. When two souls collide and ignite something powerful, it's rarely about building an easy, predictable life together. It's about setting fire to what has grown stagnant inside. It's about awakening the dormant places we had, abandoned long ago. Suddenly, through this person, wounds we thought were healed reopen. Old insecurities we buried start whispering again. Forgotten dreams stir from their slumber. And while part of you wants desperately to grasp this connection, to force it into permanence, another part, the deeper, wiser part, knows the truth. It was never about possession. It was about awakening. We crave certainty. We ache for belonging. We long for love that stays, but the soul, your soul, longs for growth. It demands truth. It hungers for awakening. And sometimes those two longings pull us in opposite directions. You can love someone with every cell in your body, and still, they may not be meant to walk beside you for a lifetime. Love is not always a final destination. Sometimes it's a door you were meant to walk through, even knowing it will close behind you. Jung spoke of synchronicity, that deep, mysterious force aligning certain people, events, and experiences beyond logic. When you meet someone and feel that instant recognition, it's not just chemistry, it's not just chance, it's the unconscious at work. It's life, beyond your understanding, weaving two souls together at precisely the moment when such an impact is needed. And the pain that follows, the aching absence, is not some cruel trick. It's the necessary shattering of an old self. It's the breaking open of all the places you tried to seal shut. You might ask, why would life offer me something so beautiful only to take it away? But true growth, real, lasting transformation rarely happens inside comfort. It's the longing, the broken dreams, the unanswered questions that force you into places you would never have dared explore otherwise. It's in losing what you thought you needed that you find out what you were truly missing. The universe does not prioritize your comfort over your evolution. It moves in patterns of awakening, of stretching you beyond the limits of who you were yesterday. And sometimes, the price of that awakening is the very thing you thought you couldn't live without. When someone enters your life and triggers something, that feels bigger than logic, bigger than explanation. It's never random. It's the unfolding of a process you may not have been ready for consciously, but that your soul has been preparing for silently. They are not simply a person, they are a mirror, a messenger, a catalyst. And although a part of you may cling to the hope that if only circumstances were different, if only timing were kinder, if only fate had been a little more generous, you could have stayed together. Deep down, you know the truth. They weren't meant to stay. They were sent to awaken. The difference between these two things is everything, because the human heart seeks stability. It seeks forever. It imagines love as something linear, a meeting, a commitment, a lifetime. And when that image shatters, The immediate instinct is to feel betrayed, to believe that something has gone terribly wrong, that the universe is cruel, or that you were foolish to believe. But look closer, feel deeper. Nothing has gone wrong. Something sacred has happened. Carl Jung spoke often about the unconscious forces guiding our lives, forces that operate beneath the surface, forces we barely comprehend. When you meet someone and everything inside you responds as if you've known them forever, it's not wishful thinking, it's not fantasy, it's a collision of inner worlds, a synchronistic meeting designed to pull you out of your sleep. These soul encounters are rare, and they are never designed for your comfort. They are designed for your evolution, and evolution, real evolution, rarely happens in peace. It happens in the earthquakes, in the fires, in the shattering of everything you thought you knew about yourself. When you cross paths with someone you cannot keep, the universe isn't being cruel, it is being precise. It is cutting away everything inside you that was never truly alive to begin with. You might think, if the universe wanted me to grow, couldn't it do it without breaking my heart? But the truth is, most of us don't grow when things are easy. We grow when the ground beneath us is ripped apart, and we are forced to find out who we really are without the comforts we once clung to. Comfort breeds repetition. Pain breeds transformation, and so you are given the gift, a painful, brutal, beautiful gift of a connection that cannot last, but that will change you forever. When someone touches you so deeply that their absence feels like a wound, it's because they awakened parts of you that were asleep. Perhaps they made you feel seen after years of invisibility. Perhaps they made you feel alive after years of numbness. Perhaps they reminded you of the dreams you buried because the world told you they were impossible. They cracked open the shell you built around yourself, and in doing so, they set in motion a process that you cannot reverse. You might mourn them. You might ache for them. You might wish with every fiber of your being that they could have stayed, but understand this: they already gave you what they came to give. The gift was never their presence. It was the awakening their presence ignited within you. And that awakening, and painful though it may be, is yours to keep. It is not tied to them. It is not dependent on their return. It is yours forever. When we encounter a love that cannot be fulfilled, we often focus only on the loss. We replay the memories, the conversations, the moments that felt timeless. We torture ourselves with what-ifs and if-onlys. We build altars to a future that was never meant to exist. But what if, instead, we honored what was real? What if, instead of clinging to the fantasy of what could have been, we bowed in gratitude for what was? Because love, true love, is not about possession. It's about transformation. The greatest loves are not always the ones that stay. Sometimes they are the ones that break us open so thoroughly that the person we were before meeting them no longer exists. And that is not a tragedy. It is a triumph. Jung understood this. He knew that the soul's journey is not about collecting people like trophies. It is about becoming. Every person who crosses your path does so for a reason. Some stay for decades, some stay for moments. But all leave fingerprints on your becoming. The ones who leave the deepest marks are often the ones you cannot hold on to, not because you failed, not because they failed, but because the connection served its purpose, and now it is time to walk forward, not carrying them, but carrying what you found within yourself through them. You did not meet them by mistake. You did not love them in vain. You were not foolish to believe. You were brave. Brave enough to open your heart when the world taught you to close it. Brave enough to feel when it would have been easier to stay numb. Brave enough to love knowing that love does not always promise a future. Brave enough to become the person you were always meant to be. Not because someone stayed, but because someone touched the deepest parts of you and awoke something sacred inside. So mourn if you must. Cry for what could not be. Honor the love you shared, even if it was fleeting, but then rise. Rise into the person you glimpsed when you were with them. Rise into the life that their love showed you was possible. Rise into the wholeness that was always waiting for you, beneath the layers of fear and forgetting, because that is the true gift. That is the real love story. Not the one you lived with them, but the one you are now called to live with yourself. Sometimes, it's not the love story itself that leaves the deepest scar, but the silence that follows. The empty space where their presence used to live, the countless moments that once felt full, now suddenly echo with absence. You realize that no matter how tightly you close your eyes, how many times you replay the memories, the connection cannot be rebuilt by will alone. And in this silence, in this aching hollowness, you begin to understand the real journey was never about keeping them. It was about facing yourself. Carl Jung believed that the unconscious brings into our lives the very people and events needed for our growth, even if they break us open in the process. When two souls meet but cannot stay together, it is because their meeting served a higher purpose than permanence. It was about confrontation, confronting the illusions you built about love, about yourself, about safety, confronting the false hopes that someone else could heal the parts of you that you were too afraid to face alone. It is easy to fall into the trap of believing that if two people love each other, it should be enough. But life, in its silent wisdom, often teaches us that love is not always measured by how long someone stays, but by how deeply they change us. Some souls come not to complete our story, but to dismantle it, to tear apart the chapters we outgrew without realizing, to burn down the comfortable cages we mistook for homes. The pain you feel is not proof that the connection was wrong. It is proof that it mattered, that it touched something essential inside you, that it reached places you had kept locked away even from yourself. Pain is not the enemy. Numbness is. Pain at least shows you are alive, that you dared to love, to open, to hope, and in that daring something irreversible happened. You became more. You touched parts of yourself that you might have left buried forever had it not been for them. It's tempting to blame the timing, the distance, the circumstances. It's easy to believe that if only things had been slightly different, you could have had the life you imagined together. But deeper than all those surface reasons lies a more profound truth. Their role in your life was never about building a future. It was about awakening you to a deeper present, to the life you had been avoiding, to the feelings you had been suppressing, to the growth you had been postponing. We often misunderstand what real soul connections are. We think they are rewards, the universe's way of finally granting us happiness. But Jung taught that the unconscious does not operate by human notions of fairness or reward. It moves according to necessity, according to what your soul most urgently needs to become whole. Sometimes that need demands tenderness and nurturing. Other times, it demands disruption and devastation. The person you met, the one you cannot seem to forget, was a disruption, a necessary one. They were the fault line across which your old self would crack open. They were the flame that would burn away everything false, everything half-lived. They were the hand that, without meaning to, tore down the walls you thought you needed to survive. And now here you are, standing in the rubble, wondering if you will ever feel whole again. You will, but not by going back to who you were before. There is no return, only rebirth. The soul does not seek comfort. It seeks expansion, and true expansion often comes through loss, through the kind of heartbreak that leaves you gasping, reeling, questioning everything you thought you knew, not because life is cruel, but because you are capable of far more than you allowed yourself to believe, because there are parts of your being that can only be forged in fire. If you pay attention, you'll notice that the wound they left is also a doorway, It invites you inward, into the places you once feared to explore. It beckons you into the silent chambers of your own heart, where real healing begins. It shows you the places where you abandoned yourself long before they ever could. And it whispers that perhaps the love you thought you needed from them was, all along, the love you were meant to give yourself. You may still have days when memories pull you under, when you miss not just the person, but the version of yourself who existed when they were near. That too is part of the grief. You are not only mourning them, you are mourning the dreams, the hopes, the parts of yourself that bloomed in their light. Allow yourself to grieve it all, but don't lose yourself in the grief. Use it. Let it carve out space inside you for something new. Let it strip away the illusions, the self-deceptions, the smallness you accepted before you knew you were capable of more. There will be moments when you are tempted to reach back, to recreate what once was, to chase after what slipped through your fingers. Resist it, not because the love was not real, but because its work is done. Because clinging to what was will only keep you from becoming what you are meant to be. Real soul connections are not meant to keep you safe. They are meant to set you free. Free from the lies you told yourself, free from the patterns that kept you trapped, free from the fear that made you settle for less than the fullness of life. Jung taught that transformation requires a confrontation. With the unconscious, a meeting with the parts of yourself you would rather ignore. Losing them forced you into that confrontation, and that is why, painful as it is, it was also sacred. Their departure was not an abandonment, it was an initiation. You are not broken, you are not a failure, you are in the middle of a sacred becoming. A becoming that could only be triggered by a love so powerful, so undeniable, that it had to be lost to reveal its true purpose. In time, you will look back and understand. You will see that they were not your destination. They were your awakening. They were the mirror that reflected your own capacity for depth, for passion, for transformation. And even though they are gone, what they stirred in you remains. What they awakened is yours to nurture, to expand, to carry forward into every part of your life. You do not honor them by clinging to the past. You honor them by living fully awake. You honor them by becoming everything you glimpsed you could be in their presence. That is the real legacy of a love that could not stay. A love that demanded you rise, even through heartbreak, even through loss, even through the unbearable ache of missing them. You were not sent that connection to possess it. You were sent it to be transformed by it. And now that transformation is yours to complete. There comes a moment after loss when the ache becomes quieter. Not because the love disappears, but because you have grown larger around it. The grief no longer defines your every breath. It becomes a room inside your heart, a room you visit sometimes, but no longer live in. And this shift, though painful, is proof that the awakening worked, that the soul connection you could not keep still accomplished what it came to do. It opened you. It stretched you beyond who you thought you were capable of being. It taught you that you could survive heartbreak, that you could survive longing, and still choose to stay open to life. Carl Jung wrote that the greatest burden a child must bear is the unlived life of the parent. In many ways, the greatest burden any of us carry is the unlived life within ourselves. The dreams we abandoned, the authenticity we silenced, the feelings we repressed. When you meet someone who awakens you, they often do more than just trigger emotions. They show you your own unlived life. They shine a light on the parts of you that you forgot how to honor, the pieces you buried in order to survive. And losing them forces you to confront a powerful question. Will you now finally choose to live all the way through? Most people spend their lives sleepwalking. They move from relationship to relationship, job to job, day to day, without ever really waking up to their own inner world. But when a soul connection strikes, when it ignites that deep fire within you, the sleep is broken. You cannot return to who you were before. You cannot unfeel what you have felt. You cannot unknow what you have come to understand. The connection changes your trajectory, not because it stays, but because it shakes you awake. And yet, even knowing this, it is still natural to long for them, to wish they could have walked beside you into the life they awakened inside you. This longing is not a flaw. It is a mark of your humanity. It means you loved deeply. It means you allowed yourself to be vulnerable. It means you were brave enough to believe in something greater than comfort. But part of maturity, part of the soul's evolution, is learning to carry that longing without letting it anchor you to the past. It is learning to love the memory without being imprisoned by it. The truth is, some people are meant to be a spark, not a foundation. They are meant to ignite your inner revolution, not to build a future with you. They come in, they set everything aflame, and then they leave you with the ashes, not as punishment, but as raw material. From those ashes, you are meant to build a new self, one more aligned with your truth, your strength, your deepest desires. The fire was never against you, it was always for you. When Jung spoke about individuation, he described it as the process of becoming who you were always meant to be, the full integration of conscious and unconscious, the union of light and shadow. True individuation demands sacrifice. It demands that you let go of illusions, of false attachments, of the comforting lies you tell yourself to avoid pain. And often, the universe sends people into our lives specifically to help us with this. Letting go. People who tear down the walls we didn't even realize we built. People who awaken desires we didn't know we had. People who force us to meet ourselves in ways we could never have managed on our own. It is a hard truth to accept. The soul does not seek ease, it seeks truth. And truth often arrives wrapped in pain. It arrives wrapped in impossible choices, in unbearable goodbyes, in the aching realization that love does not guarantee belonging. Love guarantees awakening, and awakening is rarely gentle. In the quiet moments when you find yourself thinking of them, not with bitterness, but with a bittersweet gratitude, know that you are honoring the connection in its highest form. You are not erasing what was. You are not betraying what you felt. You are simply letting it evolve into something even more powerful, wisdom. The wisdom that love does not require possession. The wisdom that growth sometimes demands loss. The wisdom that your soul's journey is not about collecting people, but about becoming the fullest version of yourself. You may still hear their voice in your dreams. You may still feel the phantom weight of their hand in yours. You may still catch yourself smiling at a memory that flashes out of nowhere. Let it happen. Let the echoes move through you, but don't cling to them. Let them be part of the beautiful mosaic of your life, not the frame that holds you captive, because the real gift they gave you was never their presence. It was the parts of yourself you touched because of them. The strength you discovered, the tenderness you reclaimed, the courage you found to live more honestly, more deeply, more fiercely. They gave you back to yourself, even if neither of you realized it at the time. This is not a story of failure. It is a story of transformation, a story of a soul brave enough to love, brave enough to lose, and brave enough to grow from both. You did not lose them. You found yourself. And that finding was the true reason for their arrival. As you move forward, as you step into new chapters of your life, you will carry the imprint of that awakening with you. It will shape the way you love. It will shape the way you dream. It will shape the way you face yourself in the mirror each morning. And in time, you will find that you are grateful, not just for the love you shared, but for the breaking it demanded, for the aliveness it awakened, for the vastness it revealed inside you, because you are vast, you are whole, you are more than the loss. You are more than the longing. You are the flame that survived the fire. You are the soul that chose to stay awake, and that, more than anything, is the legacy of the one you could not keep. They didn't come to complete you. They came to remind you that you were never incomplete. Maybe the greatest gifts the universe gives us are not the ones we get to hold on to forever, but the ones that pass through our lives just long enough to change us. Not all love stories are meant to be lived out in full. Some are meant only to awaken. Some are meant only to burn so brightly that they set fire to everything false inside us. And even though it hurts, even though part of you wishes things had been different, there is something sacred about having been touched that deeply, even for a moment. You are not broken because you loved someone you could not keep. You are not weak because you miss them even now. You are simply human, a soul learning, growing, becoming. Every ache you feel is proof that you dared to open your heart. Every memory that still stirs you is a reminder that you lived something real. And what is real never truly leaves us. It shapes us from the inside out. It weaves itself into who we are becoming. Maybe you were not meant to stay with them. Maybe you were meant to remember what it feels like to come alive. Maybe you were meant to find the strength to stand on your own. Maybe they were a bridge you had to cross, not a home where you were meant to stay. And if you can honor that, if you can hold the memory without clinging to the fantasy, then nothing was lost. Everything was transformed. There will be days when the memories flood back, when the ache feels sharp again, when the questions you thought you had answered whisper their old doubts. Let them come, let them pass. They are not signs that you have failed. They are signs that you have lived. And living with an open heart, even when it leads to pain, is one of the bravest things a soul can do. The universe is not cruel. It is precise. It sends exactly who and what we need, not to make life easy, but to make life meaningful. And sometimes, the most meaningful connections are the ones that leave us longing. The ones that refuse to fit neatly into our lives, the ones that stretch us so far that we are never the same again. If you carry anything forward from this connection, let it be this: you are capable of loving more deeply than you thought. You are capable of surviving more pain than you believed. You are capable of growing beyond every limitation you once accepted as truth. And nothing, no separation, no silence, no unfinished story can ever take that away from you. They were not the destination, they were the awakening. And now it is your turn to continue the journey, not in search of them, but in search of the person you became, because you dared to love them. Thank you for walking through this journey with courage. Thank you for choosing to face the ache instead of numbing it. Thank you for daring to hope, to love, to lose, and to rise again. This is not the end. This is the beginning. The beginning of a life lived with open eyes, open heart, and an awakened soul. And perhaps, somewhere beyond all the stories we tried to write, that was the true purpose all along.